So there has been some controversy in regards to Final Fantasy XIV. I've had a hell of a lot of people message me saying, Pez, can you tear Square Enix a new arsehole? You've been doing it a lot lately, and I admit that I have, even though I don't like to, but I always do it if I see it's fair. And in the name of objectivity, when I saw this news break, I really thought I'd be criticising Square Enix on this one. And this was that in Final Fantasy XIV, certain regions have had their monthly subscription fee hugely increased. For Brazil, it was up by 50%, and for Russia, it was almost triple. Now, Sid Alpha, a fellow pretty popular YouTuber, he's about the same size as me, and he's really informative. Absolutely no criticism, shout out to Sid, but there was a lot of errors and things that just didn't seem fair in his video. Even for example saying that the Brazilians have had their price nearly doubled, when actually the subscription fee had gone up from 28.99 real to 41.99, which is about 50%, and funnily Sid even pointed out it was 50%, but then went on to say in the description it was double, when of course it'd have to be 100% to be double. So just little details like that I thought were far more inflammatory than they needed to be. So I'm going to break down exactly what has happened with this subscription fee, and why, as bad as it sounds, a double or triple subscription fee increase for certain regions isn't actually that unfair or unwarranted. Oh goddamn. Every Russian and Brazilian has just gone hit the dislike button, haven't they? Just hear me out. Because something like calculating a subscription fee is really complicated, and far more complicated than I think most people give credit for. And whenever fees go up, of course, gamers, they just kind of lose their shit, and if it's affecting their pocket, they don't really care about, you know, the terms, the conditions, the reasons for the price increase. So this is something that can apply to anyone who's ever had their subscription fee increased or may have it in the future with Final Fantasy XIV. So kicking off, what reason did Square Enix give for hiking these prices, for jacking them up? Well, Square Enix said it was to bring those countries in line with global pricing. And to a degree, they're telling the truth, or actually they are just telling the truth. Because let's take for example the Russian ruble. It was hovering around the subscription fee at 259 rubles, which is about $4.33. So while a lot of the Americans were paying $15 at this point, the Russians were paying only around about $5, which then you can see them by them trebling it, they're now paying the same as what their American counterparts are. But the point that Sid Alpha makes, and I'll leave a link to his video in the description because he definitely makes some well-informed points, is that by jacking those prices, you're not bringing them in line globally, you're kind of just screwing over those people in that region, because due to things like, you know, different currency values, income inequality, lower wages, for some people that $15 or the $15 equivalent is to them more like $45. It's a bigger portion of their wage, and for a lot of people it's now become too expensive for them to play FF14. So basically, cutting out all the crap and the bullshit, it's too expensive for poor countries to play. Poor countries and poor people, and should poor people and poor countries get a lower fee so that it's more affordable for them, so it's not such a huge portion of their wage in comparison. Now this is a pretty complicated argument, and I think, you know, some morals comes into it and your personal opinion and outlook. Is it fairer that certain countries are giving Square Enix almost a third less of the value for the subscription just because they're a poorer country compared to you? Or do you lean more on the side that provisions should be made so that certain poor countries, that they can have a fee that is affordable for them, so there aren't people missing out just because they live in a country where they earn considerably less? But the thing is, when you start talking about that, it brings in far more complicated economics and issues than really Square Enix should ever be responsible for. And that's kind of what Sid Alpha's video didn't really focus on or highlight. It's things like, for example, though Russians do have a much lower wage, they do earn a lot less than say their American counterparts, but then what was left off was cost of living, which is almost half. I mean, for Americans it's almost double in most every aspect of living. Then you have to factor in things like with the Russian price being increased, well, the Russian ruble is down to about half the value against the US dollar as it was in 2014. Square Enix haven't shifted their prices since then, so they're getting a far lower value for that subscription. They're earning way less money. But like I said, with the cost of living being way less, the income inequality isn't as wide as you would first look if you just compared wages versus American wages. It's far more nuanced, it's far more complex than that. But then, I mean, things can even then tip the scale to show that it is worse for the Russians if we take, for example, how wages don't actually get paid a lot of the time. The amount of unpaid wages in Russia reached 58.8 million as of the 1st of February 2016. That was 21.3% more than the previous months. Delayed wages are actually not an unusual thing in Russia, supposedly, from my research, and some companies may even owe their employees 2 to 4 months of wages. Holy shit. Now that's crazy, and of course you can imagine what that does for someone who is paying an FF14 subscription. Their release in life, they now can't afford it. But again, why is that Square Enix's problem? Why did Square Enix have to cater to that? That's something that the Russians have to deal with, the Russian government. They need to put in laws for that. And again, why should us, everywhere else in the world, be paying a far higher value price or global currency price than they are, essentially? If you were to look at FF14 like a pool and our subscriptions, fund it and fund new patches and expansions and dungeons and the team and the success of 14, we are contributing far more than they are. Now, I don't mean to sound like an arsehole saying that. Like I said, I'm definitely sympathetic. But just going back to Sid Alpha's video, some of the other points he laid out was that how people weren't informed of this subscription fee hike. That suddenly one day people found their fee tripled, whereas Square Enix in their terms of agreements said that they would get 30 days of notice. The exact term being referred to was Section 4, Subject 4.1. All fee rates will be posted at, each region has its own specific site, and any changes to recurring fee rates will be posted within 30 days advance notice, and notice will be provided to the game community. Now, while Sid Alpha does agree that Square Enix don't believe they're violating their own terms by not informing everybody, and how that might be just a bit of like legal jargon, and Sid said that's kind of a shitty thing to do, just use a legal clause to get around it. I personally would have liked to have run with that thought. I've been criticising FF15 A New Empire all day, every day. Well, I definitely think some very close legal loopholes are being jumped through to get away with having this shitty product on the market. So I would have really liked to have run with that, because it would have supported my narrative. But again, in the name of objectivity, it does say in this agreement that it's only the recurring fees who will be given the 30 days notice. So those are the people who pay on a regular, they have a direct debit set up, etc. Not the people who pay the one-off payment. They pay for that every monthly subscription as it comes. And the issue there is that those are the people who are getting the price hikes. So there is no violation. They aren't even pulling off any sly legal maneuvers. It's just there in the contract that people signed up to and fully agreed to. Now, do I think it's still kind of shitty? I kind of think, yeah. I mean, why not just inform everybody? Why only the people who pay regular? Still let the people know who pay a one-off. You have their accounts, you know who they are, you have their email. How much can it hurt just to send them out a notification? So the point I'm making is I don't think it's a legal maneuver. I feel it's just more uncourteous than anything. And the final point I want to make, because I wanted to keep this video short, I cannot do short videos. I just always have to explain everything in too much depth. The other point that Sid Alpha really missed off was how these price increases are even more fair because there were actually people within that country who were already paying that higher rate. So for anyone who doesn't know, you can pay for your subscription via two means. Legacy users who used to only be able to pay via the MOG station are actually paying significantly higher than the people who are paying now via the Steam method of paying for your subscription. And the reason for that is Steam does do currency adjustments and regional adjustments on its pricing, and there are actually cases where the Brazilian players, for example, if we take the example of Brazil, they were paying the $15, the legacy users, and the new users were paying $8. Now how in the name of the 12 is that fair? That older users pay way more than newer users. This ain't O2, the motherfuckers who will make you try to pay more. And I've been with you 24 months, you bastard, on my shitty Xperia that hasn't worked for 12 of those. Now you're gonna half my data? This is a very sore subject right now. So you get what I'm saying, they were kind of just bringing the price even in line to other Brazilian users. And that's a really important detail and, again, nuance to miss out of the story, to paint the narrative that Square Enix are these money grabbing hacks and they've just screwed over their players, because the discrepancies between Steam in certain regions can be major. For example, Australia were once paying $89 for Fallout, whereas US was paying $50. People were going even as far as to get people in other countries to buy it for them and then gift it to them. Some took it even a step further and they were using proxy and VPN, altering their VPN to tell Steam that they were in a different region. Anything to save a quick buck, eh? But there it is, guys. That's the details. That's a bit more clarification for the situation, because I feel there's a hell of a lot of unnecessary anger towards Square Enix. I think it is a little bit shitty and there is call for some anger. I don't think there's any reason why Square Enix should have made those price hikes that steep and that sudden. I think they should have been adjusted over time, maybe certain provisions to have an easing period for it. It definitely could have been better explained. I definitely think everyone should be getting a notification, regardless if you pay recurringly or you pay one-off. And again, I'm in two minds on it, but perhaps do make provisions for certain poorer countries where that subscription is just unrealistic and people aren't going to be afford it. Because while I do agree in everyone paying a fair price, I also do think, what is better? Is it professional to hike your prices up and have 100,000 people leave the game? Because there are definitely people leaving the game. Even the Steam version of 14 is beginning to have its rating plummet because people are so pissed off about having these rating hikes, which is not good. I mean, it's not good for your image. It does make people who aren't as informed and who don't look into the nuances like I'm trying to do in this video, it does make them think that you're cash grabbers, so it's really bad PR. And I mean, even just for the game, it kind of affects it, because at the end of the day, what's better, 200,000 people in a country paying $15, or maybe 400,000 people paying half of that? Surely having more people in your game, it makes it more of a vibrant place, a vibrant community. Dungeons are quicker to enter. Those people who are playing it because they can afford it, may now go refer it to their friends and they may play. And FF14 will catch wind as the MMO it needs to be, but now you've hiked those prices in that country, you've got far less players. People aren't going to be making YouTube videos in it, or less people will, people who may have really found a passion for it, and they've also now got really sour, bad taste in their mouth, because the other shitty kind of thing they did is they hiked these prices after Stromblood came out, which is definitely a shitty move to do. You've made them buy an expansion when it's most exciting, whereas perhaps if you'd have hiked the prices before, that person would have known in advance this wasn't affordable, and they would have dodged getting the game. But again, I'm back on the other side of the fence, because this is a game, this is a luxury product, and this isn't like a food shelter or food service, and provisions should be made for the poorer countries. I know that sounds so bad, but you know what I mean, guys. Why shouldn't everyone pay a fair price? Especially on non-essential luxury items. I mean, do Nissan and Sony and Apple and all these other luxury companies, do they give these poor countries a lower price? Do they make provisions for them? And where do we even stop with this idea of giving a lower subscription price to make it affordable for poorer countries? I mean, why stop at countries? Why don't we start talking about regions within countries? I mean, look at the UK, down around the London and South area where I am, our average wages are almost double, or can be close to double, to what is up north. Because what feels like a $15 subscription to you in one part of the country could feel like a $30 or even $40 subscription to someone else. You get it, guys, you get the story. Really wanted to make awareness on this issue because a lot of people kept messaging me and they thought I was going to be coming out with a big old doozy of a rant. And when I first saw the story, I kind of thought it was, but then I always try to make sure I research and be as informed as possible. I mean, of course I won't always be, and there's probably huge points even I'm missing out on this because it's just such a complex issue. I'll rip Angus when I feel it's needed, and I'll be the doe-eyed adoring fanboy when it's needed. But I feel in this particular case, it's neither. I'm on the fence. I think there's some unjustified and justified action going on here, but I definitely think the fan base is way overreacting, and about 95 or probably 99% of people don't fully know the full picture. So I hope that helped out. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Until the next video, Kubo!